In this video, we're going to cover building the tool using Go. This more hands-on approach. You don't have to clone the repo doing this, but you do have to have Go installed. I have a file on here that I'm just going to I'm going to bat it. Bat's another tool. It's a cat clone with wings, I guess they say. Installing Go. We're going to bat this. So here's a list of things that we're going to end up having to do. You're going to want to follow these instructions right here. So we're going to want to put in this command right here. wget https://go.dev/dl/go1.21.6.linux-amd64.tar.gz. That's just this wget it's like a more basic version of the curl command that we use to install the Go binary in a previous video. And this is just a location of the tar file, just a compressed file. And then after we run that and we pull this Go file down to our system, then we're going to want to run this command right here with sudo permissions. What this does is it just makes sure that if you had any other Go installations on your system, it's just going to clean those up. And so this is going to ask for your password. In / meaning bedrock on your file system, as the user, you shouldn't ever really need to go back behind your user directory, which is /home/newbie in this case. You shouldn't ever really need to go back into your deep file system. But that's where a bunch of things reside. And so this command is taking care of that for you. It's going to force remove anything in the /user/local/go directory. And so we just did, that's cleaning up any prior installations of Go. And this consequently, I believe, is still how you update Go. There is no update procedure other than wiping out with a force removal. And this is a very dangerous command, FYI. Ask me how I know. This is kind of just the whole updating process for Go. You go in and you wipe out any previous installations with a force remove command, and then after installing with wget and then force removing any other installations, this is the standard Go location /user local go. But then we're going to run this sudo, this long tar command. We're going to run that. And then we have a couple things that we need to export. These lines right here that you'll find in the Fabric repo, if you just ran these in your terminal, they'll work, but they only work in this terminal session. When you spin up a new terminal session, these things need to be run again. They don't persist. These commands right here, you have to go into your bashrc and put these things in, just as they are typed out right here. You can do that from the terminal by using the echo command. You echo, and then in either quotes or double quotes, you would put the export, and then this double chevron or greater than symbol, whatever people call it, various things. This is called file redirection, or just redirection in general. And what this command does, if you had to be careful here, if you just had a single greater than symbol, you will wipe out everything in the bashrc. The double greater than symbol appends, meaning it just adds to the end of the file whatever you're echoing into it. So this echo and then exporting this as path, you would want to export each of these lines. You would want to export them, or you want to go like so. For instance, if we run this command right here, that just added what I'm highlighting here. You echoed this and appended it into the bashrc. So if we go into the bashrc at the end of the file, we are going to see literally just what I have highlighted here. That's what you'll see in the end of that file. And I've done it before, so you see it twice. And to prove to you that it didn't do it twice, I could run this, I could go into the terminal, run this again, and it would be there again. I had just run that before because I was testing out all kinds of stuff as to why. Now, I can make the instructions work that we found in a link through the GitHub repo. They're just out of date. Things update all the time. You know, it's just how these things work. I happen to know that this works for now. So just testing this out, I had run all of these things to make sure I don't look foolish on camera, you know, or on the video. So I ran this and tested it. But, you know, you could just come into your bashrc. You know, we copy these things and we could come right in here and paste them right in, except you don't want those things in here. You just start with the export command. You know, you can put these things right in. And then because this is going to be a redundancy now, we had run this command, which put in this line. This is going to be made redundant, even though it looks different. So they have the GOROOT set to user local go. That's where this is. And then they do GOROOT plus bin, which is right here. So I know it's a little bit convoluted, but this right here that I have highlighted is equivalent to this. So that's why it's done twice. So if you put these 3 lines manually in your bashrc, it doesn't hurt to leave it, but you could take this one out because of those equivalencies made redundant that specific location. And you can see right here, for whatever reason, they're also making .local bin, which we did manually. The instructions out of the Fabric repo, they're doing a redundancy there, but you see it doesn't hurt anything. That's .local bin's already in the system path, and just notifying it to put the .local bin in again won't hurt. Just like we could have left the line that was in here, we could have left that and it wouldn't hurt anything. It's just redundant is all. So we would save this and quit, and now we have to source things, or we can just quit and spin up a new terminal. And I apologize, I'll turn the conda off so it's not confusing. And so now we have all of these things. We did all this. And then, instead of sourcing the bashrc, I just spun up a new terminal. You could have done either one. But now to make sure Go's installed, just to verify, if you get a response like this, then the Go install was successful, getting a response to the version. And we have Go version 1.21.6 is a newer version. And so now that Go is installed on the system and verified, we need to run this command right here. Now this command, it's going to install a couple things. It's going to build a couple things real quick. We'll go in here and we'll just take a look. And I dislike how ls-la works. I'm sorry. I'm going to use my EZA that I have installed on my system, and we'll go over in the future what that looks like, because it's just so much neater using EZA. And then I aliased it to LL, which is LL is one of the alias commands of LS. I know that probably sounds confusing, but it's not. You just got to use it a couple times and you get it. So one of the things I'll when we get done with this video, I'll clean up. That's the Go tar file that we downloaded for Go, and then we ran some commands to install Go on the system. And so we're going to run this command now right here, because this is going to build the Fabric tool, not installing the pre-built binary. This is going to build the tool on your system. And that I haven't looked into it too deeply, but that might actually include some system tweaks, custom fit for your system. If you have a thread ripper, you have a lot more threads available. This might check. I know if you make things in C or C++ and you make it on your system and don't just build generic binaries built by others, they might have those things dialed down on like how many threads it's using, other system discrepancies, system by system by system that might actually exist in real life. My system's different, physically different than yours. And so this Go install script, it might have some things that custom tweak the Fabric tool to your system. I imagine it probably does, but maybe it makes the same binary period. But I do know that if you run this on your system and you say you have, Linux ARM64, not AMD, it's going to recognize that. It's going to build it custom fit for your system. If you run this command, if you build the Fabric tool using Go on your system, you're automatically going to have the correct binary. You don't have to guess. If you don't know if you have Linux AMD 64 or Linux ARM 64 and you're running into problems there, you could do this version of the installing Go, and I showed you a way to do it successfully. You could install Go and then run this command right here, and it's going to build the Fabric tool custom fit to your system. That's one of the advantages to using this install method. And I have to assume it's going to be the cutting edge binary if you build the Fabric tool using Go on your system. So right now it's just pulling down various files and things that it needs from the locations that those files are at, and is building the tool out for us specific for my system, and it will do it specifically for yours if you travel this route for getting Fabric onto your system. What you'll see immediately different is now there's a Go directory, and so if we cd into that and take a look around, we see there's a bin there. And why those are relevant is because because these things over here that we put into our bashrc, one of those is going to reference this bin right here. And when this bin occurs and is detected by the bashrc, and this time it's the bashrc that's looking for this bin. It's not the dot profile looking for this bin like it is looking for the bin and dot local bin. This go bin, go/bin, I'm just going to call it go bin. This go bin is being detected by wherever we exported these variables to, which was the bashrc. So your bashrc is looking for the go bin. And when and if it finds it, it inserts it into path for us with this command right here. So if we let's take a look in there and see what's in there. There's the fabric file. There's the fabric tool that we just built using Go, specific for our system here. There's the fabric tool. Now, we probably have two fabric tools now, right? Because we installed the binary and we didn't just alias it, we inserted it into our path by creating the bin directory and the .local bin directory. And if that's still there, we can have versioning conflict. If you're not careful about this stuff, you can have versioning conflict. You can get, and different odd, weird stuff can happen. So what we want to do is we want to go into cd .local bin. We still have the original binary that we downloaded, the pre-built binary. We want to remove that, because even though there's nothing wrong with it, we don't want two potentially different versions of the fabric tool on our system. We don't want that sort of conflict and the sort of confusion for our system that can create. And what's more is the fabric tool built by Go on our system, it might, now I don't know if I'm making this up or not, but usually when these things happen, I've noticed quite a bit in the past with other things that the version built locally on my system was more fine-tuned for my system, and it usually had to do with threading and things like that. And whether or not that's true here, I don't know. I'll look into it one day when I have time. But what I can tell you is that you can't download the incorrect binary if you build the fabric tool using Go. And you can see where, if you're not used to these sorts of things, that can be a really daunting task unless you have someone to hold your hand through it or just, visually show you every step that needs to be taken. And so that's why I did that. Now, you shouldn't have, again, as of March 2025, those instructions that I just showed you, those will be good for a while. And when they're no longer working, I'll take it down so that it won't be there to confuse anybody. You see, it's nothing to be scared of using Go to build this tool. It's absolutely nothing to be scared of. It's not hard. You're not getting into a ton of coding. You're installing some coding and programming tools, but you're just doing a couple scratch the surface level type of things to get this thing custom built for your system. Now, before we go, I will show you one more thing. You'll notice, let me clear the screen up, and I already have a .src folder that I made, and that's for source code, and I don't want to go in there and confuse you. So one thing I will show you, and I don't normally do this in the home directory. I don't think you should either, but it's your system. You're allowed to do whatever you like. Let's say I want to clone this fabric GitHub repo. Let's just click on that right there to get us a clean URL up here. Let's say I want to clone this down to my system. Now, you could also build the fabric tool using Go and all that. You could tweak the source code to add. They have extensible functionality built into this tool by use of building and registering extensions. So this thing can pretty much do anything you can think of. You can build the extensions out and do anything you can think of without tweaking their source code. The way they're building this thing, it doesn't really need any tweaking. They've built a way for you to tweak it without messing with their source code. We do not need a ton of versions of this fabric tool flying around the internet. We're better off having one version of the tool and let these professional guys do it, and we just step off and let them do their thing. That's probably the smartest idea. And then any specific stuff we want to do, we'll use the functionality they built in, which is using extensions. We'll follow the rules as they've laid them out to keep this whole thing clean. That being said, if you want to use the GUIs, if you want to use the Streamlit GUI or the Web UI like I demonstrated in the intro video, you want to clone this repo down. I mean, you could clone individual, you could just copy the Streamlit PI file down, and you could just probably clone the Web UI down. I don't know. Just clone the repo. And if we clone it right into our home directory, it's going to make a fabric directory. So one of the most obvious way is to git clone, and you have to have git installed on your system. If you don't have git installed, you would do sudo apt install git, or, I'm going to have you install Nala, which it's just a wrapper. I think it's just a wrapper around apt, because it still uses the apt repositories of Debian, Ubuntu, and Linux Mint and all that. If you don't have git installed, you'd have to run one of those two commands and install it. Very simple. We would do git clone, and then it's going to be this. That's why I clicked on the Fabric link right here to clean this URL up, because it's going to be this URL right here that we copy and paste into our terminal. Now, here's a point to note. You'll see a lot. You'll clone a repo by the repo's location .git. Now, GitHub has, as far as I understand it, GitHub has built-in functionality to where you can use the .git. For simple cloning, you can use .git or just the URL. You don't have to put in .git anymore, as evidenced by I'm running it right now, and it's going to clone that repo down just fine. Now, there are some scenarios left where you don't want to do this. You basically have to use .git, but they are so far down the rabbit hole, they're so esoteric compared to what we're doing now as to be a meaningless discussion. For all intents and purposes, you want to go into GitHub and you want a repo from GitHub clone down to your system, you can just do git clone and then the URL, or you can follow old conventions and you can put .git on there. It doesn't matter. You're going to have the same exact thing at the end. So now you're going to see that we have a Fabric folder right here, and we could cd into that. Now, here's one of the reasons that I do this, and I update it a lot. This GitHub repo, it just boggles my eyes. I don't know why it looks so confusing to me. This here, now if I did all the dot files and dot folders, this right here, it's basically the same thing. But all of a sudden, when it's in the format of my file system, all of a sudden, I know what to do with this. I can do things with this. I understand it. When I'm looking at it in the GitHub repo, it's just, I don't know if it's the formatting. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I look at it and I just don't know, and I do this a lot. And I just look at it and I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm looking at. I got to get this onto my system so I can do something with this. Without clicking with a mouse, I can navigate this thing in my terminal, or I can navigate it in Ranger. I'm in this directory right here is the Fabric directory, which is the cloned Fabric repo. This Fabric repo is now this, and I can go through this like I do the rest of my file system. I understand this. That's why I do it, and it might help you too. It not only does it make it a lot less scary, for me it just makes it understandable because I can traverse it with all of my normal tools once I clone repos down to my system. And there's a lot of interesting things here. You have the web UI, and there's modifications that he's made very, very lately. Not Mischler, but the guy that built the web UI, which is, out of curiosity, Jonathan Dunn for work on the GUI, and he might have worked on it, but I think there's another guy. But yeah, right here, David Peters, that built the web interface. One of these guys did some recent updates on the web UI, and they have pattern descriptions, which are just, these are, I actually had built all these things and was going to show them to you, and then just very 4, 5, 6 days ago, this guy did all these updates to the repo, and now you can call up pattern summaries on every single pattern, and a couple other things that I had actually built and planned on displaying here on these videos, but that's kind of obviated now by this guy updating. And I, when someone's running a GitHub repo and you try to help out, and yeah, if what you're doing is really awesome, maybe you'll put in a request for them to adopt some of the things you're doing. Oftentimes you'll get ignored. Don't get ticked off by that. These guys are busy. They have full lives on top of maintaining this GitHub repo for free. And if they don't get to you, or they don't see your notice or your request, or if they look at it and they don't like what you're doing, and you know what, they don't have time to be nice. They're not trying to be a-holes. They're like the rest of us. They're strapped for time. They're in a race to exist all the time, and they're going out of their way to do this. So don't get ticked off at these guys if they ignore you. And also, where I try to, I was going to do something helpful, make some scripts that make just getting certain information out of the Fabric repo easier. And now this guy obviated some of that stuff. It's best not to contend with these people that maintain these repos. Don't make their lives more difficult. They're already doing it for free. Don't get in their way. Just step off. That's how I see it. I'm not going to contend with him. This guy's one of the people running this repo. I mean, I'm just going to get out of his way. That's what you do. There's etiquette here. Most people understand etiquette, but they still don't follow it. Don't be that person. That person sucks. There's a couple other things that they updated here, and we'll get into those things, those newer updates as we explore the repo. But I just wanted to show you at the end of all this, I just wanted to show you how to clone the repo down is all. All that being said, we've gone over the installations, the different ways to install this Fabric tool on the system, and you can decide, having seen all that in the way that I took 5 minutes and beat it to death for a really long time in a couple videos, you can decide for yourself the best way to install it. Which one are you most comfortable with, or which one do you like the most? To be honest with you, when they switched to Go and started providing pre-built binaries, I always downloaded the pre-built binaries. Always. I never built with Go until I had to do it to show people, well before this video, but I had to show people around me. One of the reasons I'm making these videos is to save myself time just with the people that live around me. And so I learned to build the tool using Go, and I like it. So that's how I'm going to do it from here on out, really, is I'm going to build the tool instead of downloading the pre-built binary. It's too easy. Moving on past all that, enough jabbing at the jaw. We'll get into the next one. We'll see you there.